here's what I know about the rainy day everyone's been saving for. It almost never comes. And when it does, it rarely costs as much as we had feared. And the sunny days, the ones we skipped because we weren't sure we could afford them, those are the ones we can never get back. Hello friends, this is Tyler Gardner welcoming you to another episode of your Money Guide on the Side, where it is my job to simplify what seems complex, add nuance to what seems simple, and learn from and alongside some of the brightest minds in money, finance, and investing. So let's get started and get you one step closer to where you need to be. Quick note before we get into it, June's pre-order incentive for my book, Real Wealth, is the most personal thing I've ever agreed to share. Pre-order in June and submit your receipt at tylergardner.com and you'll get an exclusive 3-episode audio series that will never appear on this feed. 3 pivotal moments in my own financial life. The humbling one, the embarrassing one, and the one that made me rethink everything. 3 episodes, 3 moments, tylergardner.com, pre-order, submit your receipt, get the episodes delivered digitally in early July, and receive every additional monthly incentive between now and the book's release on December 1st. And now, on to today's episode. I want to start today by telling you a personal story about mashed potatoes. When I was 9 years old, my family made its annual pilgrimage to visit my grandparents in Connecticut. And if you grew up with grandparents who believed that the highest expression of love was feeding you until you couldn't move, you understand that these visits had a particular ritual to them. Ours involved the all-you-can-eat buffet. Now, I want to be clear about something. My grandfather was a man of genuine financial sophistication. He was careful, deliberate, and deeply strategic about money in ways that I would only come to appreciate decades later. But at an all-you-could-eat buffet, he became something else entirely. He became the MVP participant in a fully competitive sport. That $10.99 entry fee was not a meal, it was a contract, a covenant, a solemn agreement between him and the restaurant that he intended to honor in full with interest. So there I was, 9 years old, and my first plate, I piled approximately 2 pounds deep with mashed potatoes, marching back to the table with the quiet confidence of a child who has no idea what's about to happen. My grandfather looked at the plate. Then he looked at me. Then he looked back at the plate. What on earth do you think you're doing? I should tell you that I'm not entirely sure whether I actually remember this evening or whether it has simply become so thoroughly retold at every family gathering since, at my expense, every single time, without fail, whenever shrimp or mashed potatoes appear on a table within a 50-foot radius, that it has achieved the status of mythology, family legend, the Tyler potato incident of the mid-1990s. What I do remember is the look on his face. Did you not see the shrimp cocktail? I saw it, I said, but I don't like shrimp. I really like mashed potatoes. Wrong answer. These dinners cost $10, he said, with the calm authority of a man who has thought about this more than I ever will. You can eat anything on the line. Why would you fill up on something that we can make at home? Line drawn, point made. And I will tell you the only other detail I can confirm from that evening, because my grandfather was, above all else, consistent, is that on our way out, he subtly slid approximately 7 bread rolls and a handful of butter packets into his coat pockets. He always won. What lingers from that story, beyond my having to hear it retold every Christmas, is the voice it left behind. My grandfather's voice, in the back of my mind, telling me that financial waste is a cardinal sin, that you don't eat mashed potatoes at a buffet, that you extract maximum value from every dollar, every opportunity, every all-you-can-eat situation life places in front of you. And here's what's interesting. Freud would not be surprised to learn that I am now, as an adult, genuinely obsessed with shrimp cocktail and almost never order mashed potatoes. Trauma 1, Tyler 0. But here's the thing. That voice, the one that says save everything, waste nothing, protect every dollar, it's a voice that a lot of us have inherited from grandparents, from parents, from a cultural narrative that has been telling us for more than a century that saving money is virtuous and spending it is reckless. And today, I want to push back on that hard because I believe, and I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes making this case with data, not just opinion, that truly wealthy people, and I mean that both literally and figuratively, do not save money for a rainy day. And more importantly, that the habit of saving money the way we've been taught to save it is not building your financial future. It is consistently, mathematically destroying it. Let's get into it. Chapter 1, The Virtue Trap. I just told you a story about mashed potatoes. Now I want to pivot to a story about a marshmallow. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a psychologist at Stanford named Walter Mischel conducted what would become one of the most famous experiments in the history of behavioral science. He sat preschool children down in a room with a single marshmallow, or a similar treat, and gave them a choice. Eat it now, or wait 15 minutes and receive a second one. Apparently, the children who waited, the study found, went on to score higher on SATs. They demonstrated better emotional regulation, and they enjoyed what researchers described as better life outcomes by almost every measure. The world heard this and decided it had found the key to everything. Delayed gratification, self-control, wait for the bigger marshmallow, save now, enjoy later, deny today's desires for tomorrow's rewards. The marshmallow experiment became a cultural institution, a parable, the scientific foundation for an entire philosophy of financial restraint. And then it started to fall apart. Later research, most notably a 2013 study by Celeste Kidd, published in the journal Cognition, found that the children's decisions were not primarily about self-control at all. They were about trust. Children from unstable environments, where promises weren't necessarily reliably kept, chose the immediate marshmallow not because they lacked willpower, but because experience had taught them that the second marshmallow might never arrive. Their choice was actually quite rational. It was a function of their environment, not their character. This matters because we built an entire financial culture on a misread of a flawed experiment. And then we handed that culture to everyone we know and told them it was wisdom. Save for a rainy day. Don't spend what you can save. Safety is virtue. Risk is reckless. And that narrative has been doing significant damage ever since. Chapter 2. The history that made us afraid. To understand why we are the way we are about money, you have to understand where this fixation on savings came from. In the 19th century, mutual savings banks emerged to serve working-class Americans. Institutions like the Philadelphia Savings Fund Society, founded in 1816. The pitch was simple. Put your money somewhere safe, build a cushion, don't be vulnerable. Then came the Great Depression. Bank failures wiped out billions in deposits. People who had saved lost everything. And the government's response, the creation of FDIC insurance in 1933, solved the immediate problem, but embedded something deeper into the American financial psyche. The idea that safety was not just prudent, it was actually patriotic. To save was to be a good citizen. To invest was to gamble. To spend was to be reckless. A cultural artifact, as American as complaining about capitalism at Thanksgiving while being first in line for a 70-inch television on Black Friday. Federal regulations went on to reinforce this. Regulation Q capped interest rates on deposits, which meant savings accounts were associated with safety, but explicitly not with growth. Americans were told, in every way possible, to save for a rainy day. The rainy day, largely, never came. And the money sat there, losing ground to inflation year after year, generating anxiety rather than security, and making banks very wealthy while doing very little for the people whose deposits funded those profits. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Economic Psychology found that individuals who rely heavily on savings accounts as their primary financial tool are more likely to report anxiety about their financial future. Not less, more, which is the exact opposite of what they were promised. This episode is brought to you by Facet. If you're old enough to remember Lloyd Dobler holding a boombox over his head, and you know what "Be kind, please rewind" means, this message is for you. I see you, Gen X, and here's what you need to do today. First, figure out when you're taking Social Security. The gap between claiming at 62 and 70 could be $250,000 over your lifetime. Personally, I think money at 62 beats waiting until break even at 79, but that's just me. You need to figure out what works for you. Second, map your Roth conversion window. The years between retiring at age 70, when your RMDs kick in, are likely the lowest tax window of your entire life. Convert pre-tax to Roth, pay 12 to 22% now, never pay taxes on it again. And third, diversify and simplify your portfolio. You don't need 14 funds. You may need 3 or 4 non-correlated holdings, so when one zigs to the headlines, another may zag. And if you can't explain your portfolio to your spouse in 1 minute, it's too complicated. This is what Facet does. Real CFP professionals, flat annual membership fee, and no commissions. They'll run the math on Social Security, map your Roth conversions, walk you through Medicare and IRMA cliffs, and build you a simple, diversified portfolio. Head to facet.com/Tyler because it's not just me, they see you too. Facet is an SEC registered investment advisor. This is not advice. All opinions are my own and not a guarantee of a similar outcome. I'm not a member of Facet. I have an incentive to endorse Facet as I have an ongoing fee-based contract for cash compensation as well as a percentage of equity in Facet based on this endorsement. This episode is brought to you by Element. Heading into the summer, Element just dropped what is essentially their version of an Arnold Palmer, lemonade iced tea. And I currently have a full pitcher of it sitting in my fridge. A little caffeine alongside the salt and electrolytes is exactly what I want after a long walk through the woods with the bloodhounds, or in the late afternoon when I'd otherwise be reaching for a second cup of coffee that I don't actually need. But here's what makes this different from other energy drinks. Most energy drinks use synthetic, isolated caffeine. Element uses full-spectrum, organic black tea extract from Kericho, Kenya, 7,000 feet of elevation, so the caffeine comes with its naturally occurring L-theanine and polyphenols. The result is steadier energy, less spike, less crash, and only 50 milligrams of caffeine per serving. Enough to matter, not enough to regret. Head to drinkelement.com/Tyler, become an Element Insider, and you'll get 4 boxes for the price of 3. That's drinklmnt.com/Tyler, and even though I love this new flavor, this does nothing to diminish my feelings about mango chili and watermelon salt. Chapter 3. 3 reasons I will never save for a rainy day. Let me give you 3 specific objections to the saving as virtue narrative, not philosophical ones, financial ones. Objection 1. You have to know the true cost of saving. The first concept I actually retained from my freshman year macroeconomics class, and I will be honest, the list is not long, was opportunity cost. If something cost $100, it doesn't just cost $100. It also costs whatever that $100 could have become. In 2023, the average savings account interest rate was about 0.47% according to the FDIC. Inflation that same year averaged 4.1%. That means your money lost more than 3% of its purchasing power in a single year. Let me make that a little more concrete. You worked hard. You got a raise. Let's say the raise was 3%. Congratulations, you kept all of your savings in a traditional account. Your raise was entirely consumed by inflation. You are financially exactly where you were 12 months ago, except that you worked a full year to get there. Now, let's extend that timeline. $10,000 in a savings account earning 0.5% annually for 30 years becomes $11,616. That same $10,000 invested in a diversified portfolio earning 7% annually, the historical average for broad index funds in real terms, becomes $76,000. $76,000 versus $11,000. For the same starting number, the only difference is where we put it. In professional money management, we call the excess cash in a portfolio cash drag, because any cash holdings drag down your annual returns. Clients hated cash drag. And then those same clients went home and kept 3 years of living expenses in a savings account, earning nothing. That is not safety. That is a slow leak. Objection 2. The more you save, the more the bank wins. When you deposit money into a savings account, the bank does not put it in a drawer with your name on it. They lend it. They invest it. They pool your deposits, lend a portion out as mortgages at 6%, invest the remainder in bonds, and pay you back 0.5% on your deposit. The spread, 5.5% in this example, goes directly to the bank. Your money's working. It is just working for someone else. You are literally funding the bank's profits. You're providing them with extraordinarily cheap capital that they then deploy into the exact low-risk assets that you could buy yourself. They take no meaningful risk. They collect the return. You get table scraps and the feeling of security. Banks are businesses. They provide necessary services. I'm not here to villainize them, although it might sound like I am. I am here to point out that this model has your money working against you and for someone else, and we somehow treat this as responsible financial behavior. Objection 3, life deferred. And this is the one that tends to keep me up at night. The most insidious problem with teaching saving as a virtue is what it does to how people actually live and think about money. I'm not advocating ever for reckless spending. I'm not suggesting anyone go to Vegas and find their way into a VIP club, although if any of you are planning that trip, offer stands, I'll see you there. What I am saying is this: when saving becomes the goal rather than the tool, it produces a scarcity mindset even in people with an abundance of money. I've sat across from retirees with $2 million in their accounts who are afraid to take a vacation, who add up the bill at a restaurant before they even order, who pass on experiences that are genuinely within their means because somewhere in their nervous system, the fear of running out of money overrides every piece of rational evidence that they will not. A 2023 study from Morningstar finds that retirees with substantial savings typically withdraw just 2.8% annually, well below the once commonly recommended 4% rule, now adjusted to about a 5% rule, not because they don't have the money, but because they're afraid to spend it. And a 2018 study by United Income found that retirees typically die with 80% of their pre-retirement wealth intact. I need to say that one again. 80% intact. People work for 40 years. They defer trips. They skip experiences. They choose the mashed potatoes when the shrimp is right there. And then they die. And the money they were protecting goes to someone else who will spend it in ways the original earner could never have anticipated and would probably not have approved of, maybe on mashed potatoes. That's not a retirement plan. In my mind, that's actually a minor tragedy. Chapter 4, the 2 things I hate about emergency funds. So I want to talk briefly about the concept of the emergency fund, which is one of personal finance's most enduring and I would argue most misguided myths. On the surface, it makes sense. Have 3 to 6 months of living expenses liquid, accessible, ready for whatever the universe decides to throw at you. But here are 2 problems. Problem 1, most emergencies don't happen. According to a Federal Reserve study, 64% of Americans did not face a significant financial emergency in the prior year. But even more interesting, of the 36% who did, they reported expenses of less than $1,000. I am not here to minimize the psychological weight of a $1,000 unexpected expense. I understand that for many people that is genuinely stressful. But consider, if you had been investing even a modest percentage of your income from the beginning, you would almost certainly have well beyond $1,000 in accessible assets to address it. The emergency fund is solving for a problem that proactive investing largely prevents. So we're locking up large amounts of money that could be compounding, growing, building actual wealth, at the very least keeping up with inflation, in an account that earns nothing because we're afraid of something that is statistically unlikely to happen and which would be largely manageable if it did. Problem 2, the high yield savings account is not what it claims to be. Here's the math that almost nobody does. You have a high yield savings account earning 4%. You tell your friends about it. You feel good about this. Now subtract inflation, let's call it 3%. You're now at 1%. Now subtract taxes. Yes, interest income from a savings account is taxed as ordinary income. Depending on your bracket, that takes another 22 to 37% of your already reduced return. You're left with something approaching zero, sometimes even in a high yield account, below zero. We don't talk about post-inflation, post-tax returns because they don't sound as good. But if we don't speak in real terms, we are making financial decisions based on numbers that simply aren't real. And financial decisions based on fantasy are called something else in most contexts. Again, that is why I always and forever will use 7% referring to market returns on average, because that is the real return on the stock market since inception. This episode is brought to you by Gelt. Quick question. How did your CPA treat you this tax season? Did they reach out proactively, walk you through your options, and make you feel like a priority? Or did you hear from them in mid-March, feel rushed, and wonder afterward if you left money on the table? That second experience is not normal. You just haven't experienced a great CPA yet. A great CPA is a year-round partner, not a once-a-year fire drill. And Q2 is the best time to make a switch. Your new CPA has bandwidth, your numbers are fresh, and there's a full year ahead to make moves that actually matter. Gelt is offering 2 things for new clients who sign up before June 30th. If you filed an extension, a focused 30-minute session to find everything that can still impact your 2025 taxes before October. And for any new client onboarding in Q2, Gelt will go back through recent returns and find deductions you may have missed. Both are paid add-ons that often cost you nothing net by the time they're done. So if your CPA made you feel like an afterthought this season, go to joingelt.com/Tyler. That's joingelt.com/Tyler. This episode is brought to you by Keeper. Quick admission. My current password system is an embarrassment. It's always some combination of my first dog's name, a number I find personally meaningful, and a symbol I added when a website forced me to. And I've used variations of this same password since approximately 2004. A moderately determined 14-year-old could probably crack it on a Saturday afternoon with time left over for lunch. The problem is that we all know better and continue to do nothing about it. Strong passwords look like someone fell asleep on a keyboard, nobody memorizes them, so we recycle the easy ones across every account, which means the moment one gets compromised, they're all compromised. Your email, your brokerage, your bank, one domino. Keeper is the fix I use to solve this problem. Keeper is a password manager that creates strong, unique passwords for all your accounts, stores them securely in one place, and logs you in automatically across all your devices, so you never have to remember, guess, or worry about your login credentials again. And right now, Keeper is offering my listeners 60% off personal and family plans at keepersecurity.com/Tyler. This offer's only for you, our podcast listeners. That's keepersecurity.com/Tyler for 60% off personal and family plans. Make sure you use our link so they know we sent you. keepersecurity.com/Tyler. Chapter 5. So what do we do instead? Let me try to be constructive here because I appreciate that I've just been knocking things down as I've gone in this episode. Let me rebuild. First, If you have high interest debt, that's your only real emergency. The same financial voices telling you to fund your emergency savings account are often also telling you to do that before paying down credit card debt at 25 to 35% interest. This is advice that should come with a warning label. There is no savings account, no high yield account, no investment available to the average person that earns 25% annually, which means every dollar sitting in a savings account, even a high yield savings account, while you carry credit card debt, is a dollar that is losing you 25% per year net. That's your emergency. Everything else is a footnote. Second, consider better alternatives for the liquidity you actually need. If you genuinely want accessible, lower risk money, there are better options than a traditional savings account. Series I savings bonds are backed by the US government and tied to inflation. They protect your purchasing power in a way a savings account structurally cannot. Treasury bills offer similar characteristics. Dividend-paying index funds provide both income and appreciation. And, I know this one ruffles some feathers, a Roth IRA allows you to withdraw contributions, not earnings, at any time, penalty and tax-free. So it can function as a hybrid emergency fund while still allowing the majority of your money to compound over time. Before you write me a note saying how dare I suggest we use a Roth IRA as an emergency fund, let me just go back to how rare statistically the emergency is. And on average, you are more apt to have a great safety net if you invest in the Roth IRA for the long run, but it is there if you actually need it. Third, invest early, invest consistently, invest broadly. A diversified portfolio earning 7% annually doesn't just beat inflation. It's already accounted for inflation. It builds wealth at a rate that makes savings accounts look like they're standing still because they are. If you're not allocating at least 5 to 10% of your income into assets that appreciate over time, stocks, index funds, real estate, you're choosing, actively or passively, to let inflation consume your financial future. That, for many, is a choice that feels like safety, but it is mathematically the opposite. Chapter 6, 2 things I usually ask clients to do instead. Beyond the investment mechanics, here are 2 reframes that I want you to think about. I use these constantly with clients who are trapped in fear-based financial thinking. Strategy 1, replace your emergency savings account with an emergency spending account. This is exactly what it sounds like, a use it or lose it account. The only rule is that you have to spend it on experience. Not bills, not material possessions, not things that will sit in a closet. On experience. Not one client who took me up on this came back to me at year's end having failed to spend it. And not one of them came back talking about interest rates or account balances. They came back with stories and memories about the trip they finally took, the thing they finally did, the version of their life that had been on pause while they were busy protecting money they could afford to spend. That to me is real wealth, and it always will be. Strategy 2, and I practice this one regularly, name your marshmallows. I used to ask clients to identify 3 things that genuinely brought them joy. Not what they think should bring them joy. Not what brings other people joy. Not what looks good from the outside, and then commit to spending money on those things throughout the year completely without guilt. Research from the University of Cambridge has shown that spending on experiences rather than material possessions produces significantly more lasting happiness. The science on this is actually quite robust. But more importantly than the science, you know what makes you happy. You have probably always known. The question is whether you give yourself permission to spend money on that thing. The whole point of building financial security is not the security itself. It's what the security then makes possible. A means to an end, not an end in and of itself. Chapter 7, what happens when we save too much? Here's the tragic irony at the center of all of this. We defer so much of life in order to enjoy this concept called retirement. And then retirement arrives, and we defer the enjoyment of that too. Afraid of living too long, afraid of markets declining, afraid that Social Security will evaporate, afraid of the same rainy day we've been afraid of our entire adult lives. Today, a 65-year-old American has a 50% chance of living into their 80s and a 20% chance of reaching their 90s, according to the Social Security Administration. These are long lives. They require funding, but they also require living. The retirees who die with 80% of their wealth intact did not fail at saving. They succeeded brilliantly at it. What they failed at, and I say this with genuine compassion because the culture made them this way, was spending, was living, was giving themselves permission to enjoy what they had built. My grandfather passed away with millions in the bank. He was a remarkable man. He was careful and wise and genuinely funny when he wasn't looking at your dinner plate with barely concealed disappointment. But I think about him sometimes, and I wonder if he had known the ending date, would he have traded some of that money for a little less worry, for the trip he might not have taken, for the ability to order dessert at a restaurant without calculating whether it was worth it or thinking about if he could make it at home with the ingredients in the freezer? Would he have eaten the mashed potatoes? I think he would have. I think he would have wanted to the entire time. Here's what I want you to take from today. Saving is not the enemy. Saving as an end in itself, saving out of fear, saving without a plan, saving in accounts that erode what you've built, that is the enemy. The goal was never to accumulate the most money by the time you die. The goal was to build enough financial infrastructure that money stops being the thing you worry about so you can focus on the things that actually matter. Invest early, invest broadly, pay down high-interest debt with everything you have, keep a reasonable amount of liquid access, but not 6 months of living expenses earning nothing in an account that's losing ground to inflation while a bank profits from your caution. And spend deliberately on the things that are actually yours. The experiences, the people, the version of your life that you have been deferring while you waited to feel secure enough. As some of you know, my wife and I snowbirded for the first time this year, and we took 2 months to drive across the country and spend in Sedona, Arizona. This is something that we would have deferred for a long time, probably until retirement, and good thing we didn't, because what we learned is that we do in fact want to retire right here in Vermont. And here's what I know about the rainy day everyone's been saving for. It almost never comes. And when it does, it rarely costs as much as we had feared. And the sunny days, the ones we skipped because we weren't sure we could afford them, those are the ones we can never get back. My grandfather always won at the buffet. He extracted maximum value from every situation, every dollar, every opportunity. I just think he occasionally missed the point of what it was that he was actually winning. So I want you to eat the shrimp. I want you to eat the marshmallow. I want you to invest the difference and go live your life. As always, hope this gives you something to think about throughout the week ahead. Thanks for tuning in to your Money Guide on the Side. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to visit my website at tylergardner.com for even more helpful resources and insights. And if you are interested in receiving some quick and actionable guidance each week, don't forget to sign up for my weekly newsletter, where each Sunday I share 3 actionable financial ideas to help you take control of your money and investments. You can find the sign-up link on my website, tylergardner.com, or on any of my socials at socialcapofficial. Until next time, I'm Tyler Gardner, your money guide on the side, and I truly hope this episode got you one step closer to where you need to be.